Hey everybody, welcome to your very first AP Stats video. So what you'll see here is what you're going to see on each of our videos, and I'm always going to put the unit title on here. You'll notice that you do have a big packet in front of you, and we're going to use this over the next month. So don't be concerned that there's a lot of papers here. I think this one's like 20 some pages. So I mean, that's just how it goes. So this is for Unit 1, exploring one variable data. So everything we're going to do in this unit just has to do with one variable. I do try to put the tentative exam date on here. Now yours will have something filled in. Of course, that is subject to change, of course, but for the most part, I try to keep that exam date about where we'll land. Go ahead and put your name on this if you haven't already. Everybody's got the same packet, so you'll want to make sure that you don't lose yours. And then the other thing I'm going to suggest that you do at the beginning of every video is put the date somewhere over here, maybe off to the side. You could put a little line to say this is the start of a new video. I do really think that's helpful to keep yourself organized. We'll also do things in class, and if you date those things, it makes it really easy to kind of cross-reference where things landed in the chapter. Also, I mean, if you think about it, you're going to need to reference this Unit 1 stuff in May when you're studying for the AP exam. So it is going to be really helpful that you've got yourself organized and you have everything kind of here laid out so that you can use it to study when May rolls around. So I am going to suggest that you put the date. I'll try to remind you for the first few videos to put the date on there. We're starting with Chapter 1, which is about data analysis. Unit 1 includes both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Sometimes I give a Chapter 1 quiz just to make sure we're kind of following the right page, but I don't know. We may not do it this year. It just kind of depends on how things go. So Chapter 1 is all about analyzing data. Okay, so what you'll see here is this word definition. That means this is going to be a definition that we'll want to reference again. I've put the definition in a nice little box for you so you can reference it later. It's also bold and italicized, and I've already put the word on there for you, data analysis. Data analysis is hearing what the data is saying. So make sure you're going to record this somewhere, either by typing it in or by writing it down. So when we look at data, we don't decide what the data tells us. We listen to the data. The data is going to tell us something about the sample that we have in front of us. And our job as statisticians, congratulations, today you become a statistician, is we just get to hear what the data says as opposed to trying to get the data to say something that we want it to. This could be organizing, it could be displaying data, it could be summarizing data, or it could be asking questions about the data. And we are going to do all of those things throughout the course of this school year. Okay. The next word is individuals. Again, this is a definition. Individuals are the objects that are described by the data. Notice that it says objects. Sometimes when we hear the word individuals, we automatically think people, but individuals could be people, animals, things, places, etc. Think all of your nouns, all of those are eligible to be the individuals. Maybe we collect data on cities. Maybe we collect data on high schools. All of those things are the individuals in the data set. Now, the variable is the next definition. So you've got your individuals, you know what you want to get data about, but the variable is the characteristics of those individuals that you care about. So for example, if we're collecting data on a school, maybe we care about the demographics of the school. We care about the size of the school. We care about the location of the school. All of those things are variables. They're the characteristics that we want to know about. Okay, let's look at our first example here. The Fishers High School Student Database includes data about every enrolled student. Okay. So the first question in question A, what are the individuals and how many individuals are in the data set? The second question we're going to have to guess on, but we can answer the first question. So go ahead and pause the video and see what you think the individuals in this data set are. Something that we like to do in AP Stats is we have very specific instructions here. So it says the data is about every enrolled student. It's not about students. It's not about high school students. It's about enrolled students. So when you write down the individuals, we're going to use and mimic the wording from here. So since it asks me, or it says that it's about every enrolled student, the individuals are every enrolled student at Fishers High School. It's not every student, it's every enrolled student. So a good rule of thumb is to mimic the wording of the question in your answer. There are approximately 3,700 individuals. That's how many students are at our school. I don't know the exact number for this year, so it's about 3,700. Okay. All right, I want you to pause the video again and see if you can answer part B. What are the variables? Again, we're just making a guess. And then you don't have to write this part down, but start to think about the units that we measure each variable in. Here's some variables that I came up with. Maybe we want to know about the student's GPA. Maybe we want to know their gender, their ethnicity. We have information about their class schedule. We know which grade level they're in. We know their age. We know their smart period teacher, and so on and so forth. You may have different ones than me. You may have the same as me. That's okay. There's lots more probably. I mean, there's lots more that I don't have on here. So those are kind of the things we care about. Those are the variables, what information we want about the individuals up here. And then, of course, these will all have different units. So just keep that in mind. Not all variables have the same units. So when you're looking at a data set, these two questions are really good questions to start to ask yourself. Okay. All right, let's talk about different types of variables. The first one is a categorical variable. And a categorical variable places the individuals into one of several groups or categories. Categorical variable categories. Okay. So for example, the smart period teacher, we had that one above. That places all these individuals into different categories. All of my students in my smart period would be in that category because they have me as a smart period teacher. And all the students in your smart period class are in the same category because you all have the same smart period teacher. That's different from a quantitative variable. Quantitative variable takes numbers. And I want to say more than just takes a numerical value, because there are some numbers that are a categorical variable. So a quantitative variable takes a numerical value for which it makes sense to find an average. So it's not just every number is quantitative. You have to be really, really, really careful about this. Quantitative variables do take numerical values, but it has to make sense to find an average. So we're going to talk about a few things, but while we do that, I want you to be thinking about what might be a number where it does not make sense to find an average. Okay, start to think about that question, and we'll talk about it here in a few minutes. Okay, so I forgot to put a header up here. So go ahead and write the header. There's two different types of quantitative variables. We have discrete variables and continuous variables. A discrete variable is any whole number. So for example, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. All of those are discrete. We don't have any decimals in here. It's just every value kind of along the way. That's different from a continuous variable that does take any value. So for example, from 0 to 1, it could take 0.5. It could take 0.7528. It could take 0.2395. Any of these are eligible for a continuous variable. It's going to take any value, and we could have as many decimal places as we wanted in this range. Okay, let's talk more about quantitative variables and the number value. So an example that I came up with was zip code. Your zip code is a number. So in Fisher's, we're probably looking at 46037 or 46038. Does it make sense to find the average of those two numbers? So if I wanted to find the average, I would add them up and divide by 2, which would give me 46037.5. What in the world does that mean? We're talking about meaning a lot in AP statistics. So having this as the average of your zip codes doesn't really have a lot of meaning to me. So zip code would be a categorical variable because it does not make sense to find the average. Okay, it doesn't make sense to find the average. Okay, there's different types of graphs that we make for both categorical and quantitative variable. We also have different number summaries that we'll use. We'll talk about all of those later, but it is going to be important that you can identify categorical or quantitative because that depends on which type of graph you'll want to use. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to example 1, which is this example over here. And what we need to do is we need to categorize each of the variables that you used as categorical or quantitative. So go ahead and pause the video and fill those in, and then we'll check our answers here in a second. Okay, so if we look here at GPA, GPA takes a number, and does it make sense to find the average GPA? Maybe we took the average GPA of the senior class. Yes, that does make sense. So this would be a quantitative variable. Gender is categorical, not a number, and so we would classify into certain categories. Your class schedule is also categorical. Ethnicity, again, categorical. None of these are taking numbers. Okay, let's talk about grade level for a second. You are either a 9th, 10th, 11th, or a 12th grader. Those are numbers. Does it make sense to find the average? Probably not. I mean, if I found the average grade level of a certain class period, I don't know that you would really care about that. You would more likely want to care about the number of seniors, the number of juniors, the number of sophomores. So while grade level is a number, it does not make sense to find an average. So this is also a categorical variable. Smart period teacher is also definitely categorical. We put that down here. Now we have the issue of age. So it depends on how we're measuring age. And I want to actually skip age. We're going to talk about it here in a second. Okay, so we did that. And I mean, you could just write other page or something here because you don't really need that space. Let's look at part A of example 2. Can we convert a quantitative variable to be categorical? So let's look at some of our quantitative variables. And actually, I want to specifically point to age. Does it make sense to find the average age? Sure. You know, we could add up the number of 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and 18-year-olds, find the average. So I want to look at age. And we need to make age categorical. So as opposed, you know, we could find the average, but what if I wanted to put people into certain categories instead? So one way you could do that is you could say, I'll put everyone ages 0 to 4 together, everyone ages 5 to 9, everyone ages 10 to 14, 15 to 19, etc. This obviously wouldn't be at a high school. This would be maybe, you know, kindergarten through high school. I don't know. So each of these takes 5 ages. It would not make sense to find the average of these because they're in categories. They're in a range. So you can take a quantitative variable and make it categorical. I've also seen people say, okay, I want to take all the 17-year-olds and place them in a category. And that's not necessarily converting it to be categorical. What you're taking instead is you're taking a continuous variable and you're making it a discrete variable. So for example, instead of reporting your age as 17 and a half, which would be a continuous variable, you would just say I'm 17, which is a discrete variable. Okay, so here's we've actually made categories where it would not make sense to find an average. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. So I have a little line right here, and then on the next video, I'm going to ask you to put the date here so that you can kind of keep it separate. So just to kind of understand how we're going to organize things. So we've talked about the very beginning of chapter 1. We've done an example here. This is going to be what the majority of the videos are going to look like. And in the future, you will also have certain questions to answer before you can move on in the video as well. There's none for this one, just to keep it simple. Okay? So the next video, we'll talk about example 3, which talks about census at school. Have a great rest of your day.